Hi, I'm Chris Anderson. I'm here to talk to you today about the when and how of changing classical guitar strings. And if you're a classical guitar player, these are two questions you need to solve, come up with some strategies to kind of help you deal with the inherent problem of the classical guitar. The strings and the instrument itself do not lend itself to pitch stability. So if you're a piano player, you just kind of come into the room, sit down to the instrument, you play. But if you're a guitar player, tuning your instrument is an integral part of the skill set that you need to approach the guitar. Less so if you're a steel string player. I'll tell you the story. A very prominent coffee house folk performer by the name of David Bromberg came to the northern panhandle of West Virginia, where I was going to college, and did a coffee house performance. This guy, he made records and he was on top of it at the time. So, we were all waiting one Friday night in the coffee house for him to show up. And big crowd, a lot of buzz, David Bromberg coming to town. And he's late. He flies in from New York into Pittsburgh, and people went to pick him up, and 45 minutes after he's supposed to start, hour, suddenly bang, the back door bursts open, undone, and he rushes up to the top of the stage, front of the stage, and the opening act is kind of brushed aside, and he takes his guitar out, he starts taking off his strings on stage. And he's quick, he's fast, he's got the old peg winder going, and bang. He tunes up real quick, and he does these chromatic scales, triple forte, in first position, up, down, for about a minute, and gets the guitar to kind of settle in, retunes, boom, off to the races, does an hour and a half with really not a lot of issues in terms of tuning. If you tried to do that as a classical guitar performer, good luck. It's just not going to work for you. And the strings that I like to use on my steel string guitars, they put about 180 pounds of pressure on the top of the guitar right here. Whereas on a classical guitar, the strings I like to use put about 80 pounds. That's 180 pounds of pressure for steel string guitars, 80 pounds of pressure for classical guitars. So consequently, the instruments are built differently. Steel string guitars are much heavier top. There's all kinds of braces, heavier braces underneath here. They're built to withstand that type of pressure. 180 pounds, it's like a human being sitting on top of this piece of wood. So underneath the face of the guitar, there's a lot going on there. All right, so let's consider this question, when to change your classical guitar strings. And the real answer to that is actually another question. What are you doing? Questions. Listen, if you're an adult hobbyist and you're playing the guitar for fun, or even if you're pretty advanced or maybe even semi-professional or perhaps a teacher of the instrument, you may not need to change your strings as often as you think you might. Here's a couple of little hints. If you're a casual player, you may not need to change all your strings. Here's the fact of the matter. The highest strings, first, second, third, they're made of this kind of shiny nylon. It's just a piece of plastic. And turns out that they'll last a really long time. If I'm not doing performances, if I'm not doing important projects, I may change my bass strings, 3, 4, if I get lazy, 5 times before I do the trebles. Go. Because let me tell you, these plastic pieces of nylon, they are slippery little devils. And they just are hard to get to stay in tune. So once I get them to kind of stay in tune, I just kind of leave them alone. Now, on the other hand, these bass strings, 4, 5, and 6, these are actually kind of interesting. If I took these, there's 2 components, 2 materials to these strings. The inside is kind of like strands of nylon, kind of like a dental floss sort of type of thing. And then they wrap a piece of wire around that core. It's kind of thin, so it's sort of fragile. And to me, this D string and the A string, they're the first strings to really start to sound flat and uninspiring. And I will often just change a D string or an A string, and that'll freshen up the whole guitar. If you're doing recitals, if you're doing, auditions, what you do not want to do is change all 6 strings the night before. Again, this instrument is not built like a Sherman tank. So if I take all 80 pounds of pressure off and then put 80 pounds of pressure back on, and you're causing the instrument to go on a roller coaster. And if you're doing this recital though, and you don't want to do it all the time, the night before, all 6 strings, how do I do it? Well, the way I do it, and this sounds a little fussy, I actually wrote an article that was published in the Classical Guitar magazine back when it was published in England about 10 years ago or so, talking about when to change these strings. And I outlined a little method that I have. I know I'm a little picky, a little obsessive, and I hate to tune. So this is the way that I do it. I generally start with the 3rd string. I'm about 6 days out before my big event, my big recital. I'll change my 3rd string 6 days before. Then I go with the 2nd string, then the 1st string, and then on the day, 3 days before the recital, I'll start with the 6th string because it's a big fat one, it can handle it. And then a couple days before the recital, I'll just do this 5th string, and then the day before the recital, I'll do this D string. So yeah, I'm 6 days out, I'm doing one string a day. And you want to arrive at your recital, at your performance, with everything to worry about other than your string staying in tune. You've got these pieces to play. You've got to engage your audience. That's enough.